Welcome to the State of the Buccaneers podcast. I'm your host, Jacob Pfefferkorn, and this is the biggest and only fan run podcast of the East Tennessee State Buccaneers. We'll get right back to you after the tune.
Oh, a pirate's life for me. We pillage, we plunder, we rifle and loot, drink up behind.
Okay, we're back. Welcome to the second episode of the State of the Buccaneers podcast. Uh, Today, I have a special guest. He's a longtime friend of mine, uh, and he's a fellow Buccaneer. He's still in school. Uh, and without further ado, here's my friend, Matt. We call him McCoy, but you can call him Matt McCoy, whatever you want. So, let's introduce yourself, McCoy.
What's up? Thanks for having me on here. It's good to be here.
It's a great night to discuss some ETSU athletics.
Mhm.
Um, I first want to start off by just asking you, what is your connection to ETSU athletics and just sports in general? What makes you tick, and why you decided to come on tonight?
Yeah, so yeah, so I've grown up in Johnson City my whole life, so ETSU has always been that backyard school, sort of. But yeah, so I remember my first time ever really going to an ETSU game in general was back whenever ETSU's football program first got revamped, and me and my aunt and I think a few others, I can't really remember, went down to the first game versus Kennesaw State, and of course ETSU got smacked that game, but it was in Seal Stadium, and a few years before their current stadium opened up or anything like that, and then pretty much on a regular basis I'll always try to make it to a few games, as well as in baseball and basketball as well too. So
I can relate to that because I've been with ETSU football since the beginning. I went to a lot of those games at Science Hill. I
hmm
know I know your aunt's a professor at ETSU, and we've
hmm
gone to a couple games with her. Got in cheap, got good seats. Well, but it's just been crazy how ETSU football's grown from that. I know I went to the Battle of Bristol game
hmm
with Western Carolina versus East Tennessee State. Like all those things, all those memories have sort of contributed to our fandom. Um,
yeah, I remember the
I,
whole. Oh yeah, that was a fun one.
I and I just wanted to another thing I wanted to ask is just what's your favorite memory at a ETSU game? I have a couple, uh, but I
Well,
was just wondering what yours was.
yeah, so there's a couple that comes to mind, and the first one being, I forget who it was against, but it was back whenever me and you were both in high school still, I believe.
Yeah.
We hit a buzzer beater at to win the game, and it was in a major SoCon game in Southern or in Freedom Hall. I can't remember who it was that we played, but I remember I was like, oh yeah, I'm gonna film this, and of course, like I got elbow bumped or something, and my phone went flying,
Hmm.
so I didn't really get the shot, but that was a pretty fun game. And then of course, like more recently, I think it was after the 21 or in the 2021 season. Um, Once again against Kennesaw State, we hit that 2 point conversion to win the game in the first round of the playoffs. That was pretty fun. It was
Yeah.
pretty to see the crowd reaction and all that stuff.
Hmm. That game was like that whole season, man. Like the Mercer game and the Kennesaw State game, I have
Mhm.
vivid memories. Like everyone was going nuts. Like in the student section, the regular section,
Yeah,
I stormed the field. I was a part of that. I'm lucky I was a part of that one because one of the other great ETSU moments I actually got missed out on was the Pat Good game. I missed out on that. I don't know if you were there or not.
yeah, I don't
When
recall that.
he, yeah, that was when ETSU came back against Western Carolina. I have a lot of. We all have a great a lot of. We both have a lot of great ETSU memories. And I just yeah, I we both have football and basketball moments.
Mm-hmm.
And another one I have is one time ETSU was down against Western Carolina. It
Mm-hmm.
was 2018 season. Randy
Mm-hmm.
Sanders, I think it was his first year.
Yeah,
I think it was the first year. But the game, the conditions were terrible outside. Uh, we got down. It was the fourth quarter, and I was starting to get my hands were starting to turn purple, and uh, I decided to leave because I didn't bring gloves or wasn't dressed for that weather.
right.
Well, I go home, take sort of a nap, and then I wake back up. ETSU and Western Carolina are in like overtime through or like second overtime, and I'm like, what the heck happened? What we were down 20 points when I came back home, and uh, there's just so many of those memories to pull from. I know you've been in a lot of them, especially since we have the Steve Forbes and Randy Sanders eras right in there together.
Right.
Um, that's two of the greatest coaches in ETSU history. So,
Mm-hmm.
uh, and I hope that era is coming back soon with Brooks Savage, and we'll get maybe not football yet. We'll see what happens, but um, that's that's sort of also what I wanted to get into. But do you have any other memories that you'd like to share about
Yeah.
ETSU sports?
Well, this isn't really ETSU related, well, it
Yeah,
kind of, but so back in you mentioning Randy Sanders' first year kind of made me
yeah,
remember. But ETSU played at Tennessee, and of course that was like such a big deal for
hmm
ETSU, to go down and play in the state school and stuff. And I wish we would play a lot more, but I don't think we're gonna play again until I'm 25, I think.
yeah.
But
I just that just got announced a little bit ago. I
yeah, a few
mean,
weeks.
ETSU hadn't played UT since they played them like in the
And
early days of ETSU, but it was like the freshman team. It was like
mhm.
so long ago they still had like a freshman team. And
Right.
so that was a big moment too. Another just on the or topic of playing big schools, we
Mhm.
were gonna play Georgia before all the COVID BS happened. So I'm kind of grateful that we didn't have to play them because it would have been like 81-10 or something like that.
Pretty.
I'm a big ETSU guy, but UGA football has been a different planet. It's like ETSU basketball going against uh, the
Kentucky.
prime. Yeah, Kentucky.
Yeah.
The year they had like all five starters, which I think they actually did play them in the tourney when they had Anthony Davis and might have just been Anthony Davis, but that team was insane. Like, but
Yeah, like I don't remember that, but like going back to whenever ETSU played at Tennessee in football, Tennessee fans are obviously kind of notorious for this, but but the game went into a rain delay, and the fans were frustrated at that point because like the score was. We were at the end of the first quarter and it was 3-0, and so of course the Tennessee fans were all frustrated and all that stuff. And the I don't know whose idea was it to do this, but they did. But they put like fans, like paper fans at you know, in the student section for each student seat. And as the ETSU players were walking off the field for that storm delay, the fans started throwing the fans at the players and stuff, and like started littering the field and all that stuff. And of course, I was there for that, and I was also there in a couple of years ago whenever we threw all the stuff on the field against Ole Miss as well. So that was I'm always here for the exciting moments like that.
yeah, yeah. Just I mean, I can kind of relate. to you being a fan of two teams? I know you're a big UT guy. I know
Right.
that's kind of taboo in the ETSU fan base with some
Mm.
people, but I mean, we all have a second team. Well, some people don't, but I say a majority do, even if they're like 100% in the ETSU athletics. Because I got Purdue and you got UT, but I just how crazy UT fans are. Like uh, that one guy when Purdue and UT played, he got in the face of the band member. That's a
Yeah, we have
man.
ones, but you say it's been tabooed, or like taboo or looked upon to be
Yeah,
a fan two schools, but yeah, like a lot of
mm,
times, like I'm like this, and I'm sure 90% of the other people who you know
yeah, yeah,
whenever we were growing up, we didn't have ETSU football. The closest football team we had to us was UT, or
yeah,
you technically consider App State or Virginia Tech, or
yeah. That's
like UT's a state school. Makes sense to root for them, like if you're from this area, unless you have ties to other areas, like if you're
yeah.
from
See,
Florida, Georgia, or something. But
yeah, that's
oh,
sort of how I was. My dad went to Purdue, so I was a Purdue fan. I remember being little, I liked App State because they were the underdog. I always loved the underdog, so that's
right,
who I rooted for. And I understand, like, when I was like, why doesn't ETSU have football? Like, that's one of the big things. Like, that's why the fan base became so reinvigorated. Like, I know when I was younger, I mean, there's a lot of basketball fans, but like, you didn't see ETSU signs out in the front front of lawns. Like, maybe you saw like if they went there, if they were like a teacher or something,
mhm,
but like otherwise, you didn't see that in the media. Like, it's gotten better somewhat, but there's still a long way to go. Like, I think, as
mhm,
far as coverage of ETSU and pushing them to become like a regional powerhouse. It's kind of been impacted by COVID, but it's
yeah,
it'll be, yeah.
the transfer portal era as
Yeah,
well.
I know. I talk about that with some other ETSU fans, like transfer portal and NIL. It impacts ETSU. Like
Mhm,
ETSU's NIL collective. Like if they have a collective, it takes away from donor dollars because they're going to be transferring to that because ETSU is a smaller fan base and there's a finite number of dollars. It's not like you have like 55 different billionaire donors like Texas, a bunch of the Texas schools or Miami or USC or whatever. You have like a finite amount of donors and they have to figure out what they're going to contribute to and what not. You know,
right, right.
um, I know there's one thing I'd say it was the Give a Buck campaign. I kind of want to shout this out before we get too far into the episode. I'll probably talk about it again at the end of the episode, but uh, you could just go give $5, and I think it goes directly to the student athletes and athletics. So if you want to support ETSU uh, Buccaneer student athletes, just go there and donate. So, um, but I think that sort of covers why we're passionate about ETSU athletics. Unless you've got anything else, Matt, and
I think that covers it, man.
yeah, I think so too. I think we could start talking about the football game this week. But before we get into all that, I just wanted to have a short segment. Last week I did a trivia question. It was kind of all over the place, but we'll just every week we're going to do a trivia question. It just depends on how much ETSU knowledge you have. We're going to start out super basic and then
Mhm.
move into some more hard hitting questions. When the further we go, we're going to have to dig deeper to find trivia questions. But um, the trivia question this week is, which ETSU football team went undefeated? A, 1969, B, 1996, C, 1955, D, 2021. Uh, do you know the answer, McCoy?
I'm gonna say 1955.
Eh, that was wrong. It
That's
was the
1969.
1969, and
That was my
that
first.
team went undefeated. They had one tie, but they were still undefeated. No one defeated them. And in the
That
postseason, they played Terry Bradshaw's Louisiana Tech and destroyed them. Not just beat them, they destroyed them. They made him turn the ball over like 5 or 6 times, I think.
whole
I
turnover.
think it was that. He, yeah, it was a crazy game, and it's probably the greatest ETSU football season in history, up there with 2021 and 1996. All three of those years are like the three greatest seasons, but um, that's just sort of I wanted to use that to segue in to talking about the football team this week.
Yeah.
Um, this week, ETSU played Samford. Uh, they lost 42-28 and dropped to 1-3 and 0-1 in the conference. Um, I had hoped that we would win this week because Samford's not that great of a team either. So far, comparatively to the Bucks, the Bucks played better this week, but I had hoped that me being in Alabama this weekend, they would bring them luck, but
Yeah.
unfortunately it didn't. Uh, so um, I just wanted to get into this weekend. Do you have any thoughts about this game uh, that happened this weekend, McCoy?
Yeah, so against Sanford, some things I noticed were we, only hit on 30% of our third downs, and we also went over fourth down, and usually, the average is around 45% on third conversions, and so if you're not hitting those third down conversions, the trials out, and it's hard to move the ball down the field whenever you're not converting on third down or anything like that. Then some other things were I noticed in all of the losses except for the Austin P game. That's the one outlier, but against against Samford and against Jacksonville State, ETSU had over 80 yards of penalties in both games, and so a lot of those obviously resulting in first downs for the opponent and resulting in touchdowns on site. So just stuff like that needs to be cleaned up if ETSC wants to be able to find a rhythm offensively, and I think that's the biggest key on the on why ETSU has struggled so far offensively is because of the penalties and just not being able to get in a rhythm. So,
Yeah, I'd agree. A lot of the stuff ETSU has to work on, it's
mhm.
execution, like discipline. The stuff where, you figure out who the pretenders and the contenders are in
Right.
football, like this coaching staff has to teach discipline, If we can't have 80 yards of penalties, we can't,
Mhm.
you know, any team that puts themselves behind the eight ball like that isn't going to win games. Same thing with turnovers. I mean, they weren't too bad this week, I don't think, but like on the year, it's just been all over the place, and that kind of comes down to like our QB injuries. I think Riddell's still kind of hurt, still recovering. So,
Mhm.
and you know, I will say the one positive this week, the run game. The run game finally had a great game. Bryson Irby and uh, Zach Borish. I hope I'm saying that right. If I'm not, someone correct me. I saw his dad followed me on Twitter this afternoon. If just tell me how it's pronounced. I understand having a long last name or a sort of different last name. But anyway, Bryson Irby had 126 yards for 3 touchdowns, and Borish had the longest run of the day. Um, he had 50 yards total. I'm gonna go find. I'm gonna go find where. I don't know if I can find it. Where he had the long play. Let's see. Let's see if he had it 5 yards. Someone said he had the longest yard. Let's see.
70 yarder, or
Yeah, it
or
was 70 yards. I think it was somewhere in there. But he those two backs, I think they could be the next tandem at ETSU, the next uh, Jacob Sailors and Quay Holmes. If they continue to run like that and the O line
Mhm.
continues to improve,
Right,
in,
right.
in their run blocking, I think the O line's much improved this year
Mhm,
uh, compared to last year. I think that has to do with the coaching change.
mhm.
Uh, we picked up a different O line coach. I had good things from some other people. We'll see if that holds. It remains to be seen, but defensively, I mean, this is always an issue against Samford because they run that air raid type offense. Um, if you remember, I don't know if you remember 2021, they had ETSU and Samford had that an absolute shootout. It was back and forth the whole
Yeah,
game
a double
till
over.
like the last. Yeah, Riddell had a insane stat line. Like he had 5 touchdowns and like 500, 400, 500 yards, something like that. I don't have the numbers pulled up right now, but that was a great performance by him. I hope he has some more performances like that here in the future while he's still a Buccaneer. But uh, did you have anything else you wanted to say? I know
Yes,
just talking about the defense.
not necessarily about the defense, but going back to the offensive side of the ball. So something that I noticed is like OETSC does on first down, the drive, how their drive ends. So like on the drives that they ended up not scoring on against Samford, first. Like on the first drive, it was a run for 4 yards. On the second drive, a run for first or for 1 yard, and then on the third drive, a run for 6 yards, but that one was taken back by a sack the next play,
Hmm.
and then next drive a run for 3 yards, and then on their first touchdown drive they ran it for 4 yards on first down, and then back to running it for 2 yards. Then next touchdown drive, 7 yards, and then next touchdown or the next drive, which was also a touchdown, was a pass for 9 yards, and then the next drive was a run for 18 yards, but then they turned it over on downs after that.
Hmm.
Then, pretty much the thing I'm noticing the most here is that, like, if they, don't get up to 4 or 5 yards on first down, they're not going to score on the drive. So, and they seem to be really repetitive with running the ball on first down. Like, even if it's, like, they get a first or a few first downs on one individual drive, they'll still run it on first down 9 times out of 10. So like that makes them a lot more predictable on offense, and I think that puts the offense in a lot worse of
Hmm.
a situation.
Yeah, I play calling. It's kind of all over the place, and it has been so far in the Quarles era. Just like uh, he forces the run when it shouldn't be, and then he switches to all pass. Just sort of finding that balance. That's what's going to help ETSU the most.
Mm-hmm.
Um, just sort of using the run to set up the pass because he tries to do too much. Get too cute with his play calling in
Mm-hmm.
clutch situations, and that's how we get a game like this. Uh, we were tied 21-21, and we just folded. And offense didn't do anything, and the defense were on their knees, gassed, of course, against the Samford offense. And it's not going to get any easier. We still got Chattanooga, still got Furman, still got Western Carolina. All those offenses are potent. You know, even
Right.
Mercer this weekend. I
Mm-hmm.
forgot to mention this is the homecoming special, but we got our homecoming game against Mercer this weekend. But uh, anyway, you just gotta manage the game better. You gotta look at the clock, look at the situation and dial in those play calls.
Mhm. All right, but also getting ahead of the chains is super important. Like if you're going to run it, you need to make sure you get like 4 or 5 yards
Yeah.
because if you pick up 4 or 5 yards of play, you will move the ball down the field methodically. But if you run it and 1 or 2 yard gain, you're set behind the sticks there. And especially if you're not converting on third down, then that's not good. It needs to be improved in some way, shape, or form. So,
Hmm. Yeah, I agree with that. Because 2 runs and a pass isn't going to work offensively. I know that as a Purdue fan, that was Hazel's offense his whole time at Purdue until he got started passing the ball all the time because they were behind so far in games. But uh, that's sort of the offense has how the offense has been these past 2 years. So there's got to be some adjustments made. I'm not sure what because I'm not a football coach. I know you know more about the X's and O's side of football. I'm more looking at where talent needs to be because this team has talent, tons
mhm,
of it, tons of it all over the place. And uh, we just need to find the right roles for everybody and the right chemistry. And
mhm,
that's where I think it's missing. We see talented plays, you know, the running backs, the QB, at wide receiver, we still have Will Huzzy. On defense, there's a number of talented players. Some of them I don't know. A lot of them with all the transfer portal movement, I haven't kept as much up with that side of the ball as offense. But losing Elijah Huzzy was a big one. But
mhm,
uh, just like there's still a lot of good talent on the team. You know, they just need to mesh better, and I think that's what you're talking about and what I'm talking about. So I
mhm.
think
Right.
I think that pretty much covers what we're you know what the issues are with the football team. You have anything else you wanted to say about the Samford game? I,
Nope.
I think yeah, I think that pretty much covers it. I just want to do a quick preview of the Mercer game this weekend. Let's find the Mercer stats. Uh, they are currently 3-2 and 1-1 in conference. They just came off of a win against VMI, 38-3. I mean, that's a pretty easy opponent to start off your SoCon schedule. They lost to Furman. They got blown out. I think they lost to Western Carolina. Wait, let me look at full team schedule. No, they haven't played Western Carolina yet. They lost to Furman. But I don't think they're the same explosive offense as years past because they lost Fred Payton. They're starting Carter Peavy now. I think they lost a lot on the offensive side of the ball, if I remember correctly. But um, this is going to be a chance for the Buccaneers coming in on homecoming weekend uh, to get their first conference win. They really need a conference win if they want to stay in the SoCon race, even to just tie. And this is a perfect opportunity to do it. Uh, just just go out there and play hard. Mercer, we have a pretty good record against them since coming back, football coming back. Um, Football came back around the same time for them, a couple years earlier, but they joined the SoCon with us. Um, and I think this is going to be a toss up. It's going to be like the Samford game, toss up as well. They're not super great. We're kind of getting into the SoCon talk. We'll get a little bit more into that, but I think this will be a good game. What are your thoughts, McCoy?
Yeah, I do too. I think that according to Vegas, we're like a touchdown favorite. So do with that what you want. But
Hmm.
so yeah, like just looking at them, they are already close to 800 yards passed, and then also have a running back close to around 350 yards. So
Hmm.
they definitely do have offensive capabilities, and their defense is definitely what's kind of been holding them up though, because like other than Ole Miss, they got beat by Ole Miss 73-3 or 73-7, but that's also Ole Miss we're talking about. But and then they also played UNC Asheville or UNA. I'm not sure who that is, but they only
North,
beat them 7. But what?
it was North Alabama.
Oh
No,
yeah, Alabama.
they're
That,
new
that
to
right.
D1.
Yeah, yeah. So they played them, and then Morehead State they beat them 48-22, and then lost at Furman 38-14, and then VMI they won it 38-3. So yeah, they certainly do have a capable offense at times, but other times, it's been their defense that's been kind of holding them aground, and I think that's going to be the biggest key for ETSU
Yeah,
Saturday is how well can they manage or how well can they score on
yeah,
Mercer's defense, and will it be enough in the end? So
yeah. Because Mercer's schedule's been all over the place. Like they've been playing. They played non-scholarship. They played military academy. Played a new D1 team, and then they play FBS Old Miss. So you can't really get a read. And then they played Furman, but Furman's I think they might be the best team in the SoCon. I think it's a three horse race right now, but
yeah,
sort
between
of getting that. Yeah,
Carolina for sure.
yeah. But yeah, it's going to be a great weekend. I'm going to try to be at homecoming. I don't think I'm going to be able to stay the whole game. I, I'm I'm going to try to get you out. Maybe I don't know. We'll see what happens. Because I'm also going to go to the uh, open practice for ETSU basketball, and
Mm.
I just I'm going to try to be there and tailgate a little bit, and because I have to work later in the day, but uh, it's going to be a great weekend, a great game. Uh, do you have a score prediction for this weekend?
Yeah, right now I'm gonna go 38-24 Mercer.
Yeah, I'm gonna go 31-24 the Bucks. I gotta
Okay,
pick the Bucks on homecoming. I gotta pick the Bucks. So um, let's move on to the next discussion. We're gonna sort of talk about the SoCon a little bit more.
right.
It's gonna be quick, but uh, I kind of got into it last week.
Mhm.
Um, I think Chattanooga's by far the favorite, just with their QB play alone. Um, let's go to the SoCon standings on ESPN. They last weekend they beat Wofford, they beat Samford by a lot, beat Citadel by a lot. Yeah, it's a three horse race. Chase Artipus is slinging it around. Western Carolina, of course, they have Kerwin Bell's offense. He's been great for them. Western Carolina isn't a very great program, but shout out Cole Spivey on SoCon Twitter. Uh, I had to give him a shout out because he'd probably get offended if I didn't bring him up. But they're looking pretty great. They
Mhm.
beat Samford 30-7, and they beat the Citadel 49-14. Eastern Kentucky and Charleston Southern, they basically destroyed Charleston Southern, but they play Chattanooga this weekend. That's going to be a game to watch. If there's a SoCon game, besides ETSU, of course, to watch this weekend is going to be that one because they're going to be slinging the rock around both teams. And of course, you got Furman at they are at 3-1. They play the Citadel this weekend. They beat Mercer 38-14 this past weekend. So they are third. So I think it's a three horse race. And then, of course, you got Wofford, Citadel, ETSU, Samford, VMI. I don't feel like talking about the rest at this point. I don't think any of those other teams are going to make the playoffs at the current moment. Um, I think there's only about three teams that are going to be in playoff contention. Whoever wins the conference and maybe one other. I don't know about at-large bids for the playoffs at the moment. The third team might be pushing it. We'll just see. It's a wait and see on that. Do you have any thoughts about the overall SoCon, McCoy?
Yeah, no, I mean, pretty much it's like, kind of Jekyll and Hyde. Like top half of the conference is really strong.
Mm-hmm.
Chattanooga, Western Carolina, Furman, and Mercer. All of them are really strong teams. And then it's like the rest of them are, kind of shaky. Like there's a few teams, like ETSU and Samford, for instance, they could see, okay, maybe they can make a
Mm-hmm.
run,
Yeah, yeah,
end up, in that third spot in the conference. But like I was just looking at the Citadel, and I don't think they've had a close game yet. They're 0-5 and have gotten blown out every single game they played. So like them and Walford, which Walford's put up more of a fight, but that's because
yeah,
the offense that they run, the triple options.
yeah. The Citadels. I don't think they're running the option anymore.
They don't.
Shout out. I don't think so, but they're bad. Shout out FCS Nation Radio for having to put up with them this weekend. Great dude I met at ETSU Kennesaw State game. He runs a radio show, but they're bad. They're kind of they bring up they're going to be probably finish last in the conference. VMI and Wofford have new coaches, so I think all three of those have new coaches this year, but they are bringing up the bottom of the conference this year, so we'll
Mhm.
see what happens there.
Right, right.
Um, but I think that's about all we can say at the moment. We'll probably talk. I'm going to talk more about the Chattanooga Western Carolina game next week. Um, Maybe, yeah, we'll get into that. But um, just want to talk quickly about the basketball team too.
Mm.
The We have the open practice this week, of course. I sort of got into it last week. All the new roster additions, I think this team's going to be. It's going to take a minute for them to gel, but I think they got good pieces. They're going to be a tough team. And if you want to pull up the roster, you can. But um, do you have any thoughts about the ETSU basketball team this year?
Yeah, so I'm really interested to see how everything works out. I think they made a great hire with
Yeah.
like he was on Tennessee's staff while Bruce Pearl was there, and then he's pretty much shadowed Steve Steve Forbes the rest of his career. So he definitely has been around the right coaches to be a good head coach, and so I'm excited to see how he does. And I'm looking at their schedule right now, and they do have a really interesting uh, non-conference slate. Like obviously they play their version of a money game against King, and then they play Elon, Butler, Davidson, App State, Jacksonville State, Tennessee Tech. Those are some really solid out of conference games that
Hmm.
will prove to be interesting, and especially the Utah State game as well. So it'll be interesting to see how everything shapes out.
Yeah, they really went heavy on the mid majors this year.
Mm.
I just like because like in years past, a few have backed out. There's a couple that backed out this year. I think Delaware backed out.
Yeah,
Or another. I think it was Delaware.
yeah.
And they had to replace. That's why the schedule took so long.
Mm.
But and the mid season tournament with Cleveland State. But I'm really excited for the Davidson game at Freedom Hall. I'm going to be at that game. Old SoCon rival. Lots of the home schedule is really solid this year. Like
It is. Yeah.
usually like since ETSU has been so good in years past, a lot of teams have been hesitant to schedule them. Um,
Mhm.
and so you end up with like Tusculum, King, Milligan is your home slate, and then UVA Wise, whatever, and you end up with a lot of those as your home slate. But
Speaking
this year's it's
of,
different, you know.
yeah, and speaking of which, we're only a month out, pretty much, from
Yeah,
the opener. That's it's coming up on us.
yeah, it's coming up fast. Like
Mhm.
I'm excited. I'm gonna be at as many games as I can be this year with work and everything like that. But uh, yeah, I'm excited about the future of ETSU basketball. The last couple years have left bad taste in a lot of people's mouth, but I think we made a 10 out of 10 hire for like people development, community. Like Brooks Savage, I have met him personally, and he
Mhm.
is a great dude. Like he's the most social coach I think I've ever met. You know, like
Right.
he's just laid back. Like he cares about his players, cares about the community, meets
Mhm.
all those boxes. You know, like
Mhm.
some coaches, let's be honest, they're jerks. You know, some don't care about fan interaction at all, don't care about their players. They're just about me. What do I do to make myself look good? Brooks Savage is the complete opposite of that. And
Right.
I'm excited for it, you know. Like I
Mhm.
kind of got into it last week. He's all about team, making the program better, making better men, you know. And
Right.
that's what you have to establish first before you can win any basketball games.
Mhm. Yeah, because
Yeah.
basketball, especially, is a team sport. Like if you don't have
Mhm.
all five guys on the same page, you're not going to succeed. And
Mhm.
I think that's like what really happened with Kentucky the past few years. Like how they've been having
Mhm.
or going on a downward spiral. I think that's a lot of the reason behind it is because of team chemistry and all that stuff. Like and that's really important whenever it comes to basketball.
Yeah, because like you can have all the talent in the world, but if you don't have great chemistry, you're not going to win. You know,
Hmm.
we've seen that over and over with the super teams in the NBA. It's usually the teams that have been built, you know, had a core and have just added their pieces on. Not just teams that have been bought, other than the Miami Heat. That was about the only one of those that worked out. And Kevin Durant joining the Warriors, but that was already built team too.
Yeah.
But uh, I feel positive, more positive about the state of ETSU basketball than I have since Forbes uh, went to Wake Forest. You know, after COVID, that night in uh, Asheville when we went, everyone was there in the arena, and we cut down the banner. And little did we know, COVID was about to hit us, and life was going to change. But uh, I'm positive this season. I mean, there's going to be struggles. Don't get me wrong, because it's a new team, a lot of new players, a lot of fresh faces. But
Yeah.
there's talent there, and I believe it. So um, I think that about covers. Oh, I was going to ask, uh, who's a player you're most excited for on this year's team? I have my picks.
Uh,
Um,
See, I don't really know that much about the players, if I'm being completely honest.
yeah, it's
I
it's
do
kind
think
of hard.
I'm looking at the roster right now, and it's actually pretty interesting because I see someone who used to play for Tennessee, um, Rock Jancic. That's pretty interesting to
Uh,
see. And like it's pretty much all local kids. Like mostly Tennessee or Western North Carolina players on the team. So that's pretty interesting to see. Like and then there's someone from Atlanta too.
wait,
Um,
I think that might be last year's roster. I don't think Brock Jancic's on the team this year.
oh, well,
It
he's odd to
does
me.
it does it, does it say 22, 23?
Nah, 23, 24.
Okay, I didn't. I don't think Brock Jancic's still on the team.
Hold on, let me.
Um, because he was a graduate player last year. He had 1 year of eligibility left.
Yeah, but at the lower levels of,
Yeah.
they're
Uh, one of my players I'm really excited for. Uh, there's yeah, I'm excited for the transfers from William and Mary, Tyler Rice, Delaware transfer. What's I forget his name.
Like y'all
I
also have
will.
Wichita State transfer as well.
Yeah, that's Jaden Seymour. Okay, funny story about him. He's gone through a athletic transformation in the offseason. I think he might be ECSU's best player this year. Like he increases vertical and everything. Um, Jaden Seymour is going to be a great uh, player. He was good last year, but I think he's taking a whole new step this year. And then another player, the Jaden Parker from North Florida. He's going to be a force on the defensive end. Um, a lot of the JUCO transfers, there's a couple I'm excited about, but I forget their names. I'm gonna have to do. I'm still getting names to faces, um, and I think this team like it's well recruited. Like people are gonna know their roles on this team. Like so, I'm excited for just the whole roster in general.
Right, right.
And I think that's all we can say. I'm gonna go to the practice this weekend. Well, I'm going to take a look at some of these players in action. We'll see how far that gets in there, but um, I think that's about all we have on the basketball team.
Mhm.
Uh, but one last thing with the basketball team on the I have some news about this podcast. Uh,
Mhm.
Next week we will be having on a very special guest. Um, Brooks Savage, the head coach of the East Tennessee State Buccaneers, will be on the State of the Buccaneers podcast. Um, and I hope you tune in, tell your friends, tell your fellow Buccaneer fans, tell anybody, tell people at work, listen to this podcast because it's going to be a special episode. Very special. Um, and I'm glad uh, as I'm going to transition into the closing. Um, just wanted to give shout outs to everybody that watched last week and tuned in last week, left positive support. Uh, I had a lot of people say they really enjoyed it. Very introspective podcast. Um, and they'll probably say the same about this week. Uh, I just want to thank you for coming on tonight, McCoy. You were a great guest. Had a lot of insight. I didn't know how this was going to go. We You're kind of cut out a little bit, but you still we could hear you. We'll
Mhm.
see what it looks like going back and editing. But you were a great guest tonight, and I'll have you back on again soon.
Sounds good, man.
Um, yep, I appreciate you. I just wanted to give you or give another shout out. If anybody wants to come on the podcast, just let me know. DM me on Twitter. That'd probably be the best way. Either DM me or on Twitter or Instagram. Um, uh, Bringing it back around, I wanted to talk about the Just Give a Buck podcast. Make sure to go donate to that. I'll put a link in the description. I think that's about all I have for tonight. Um, I appreciate you all for watching. Godspeed and go Bucks. Love you all. Have a good night.
Yo ho, yo ho, a pirate's life for me. We pillage, we plunder, we rifle and loot, drink up beer.